Oh boy.
大丈夫？足元にいろいろあるわ。気をつけて。
Are you alright? There's a lot of junk on the ground here, so be careful where you walk. Got it.
真っ暗でよくわからないけど、委員長の懐中電灯でチラチラと照らされる地下室の内部には、そこら中にガラクタや本が散乱していた。
So, there was no light down here with us whatsoever to say for the class rep's shaky flashlight beam, and all that beam revealed was a mess of books and clutter.
机の上には山ほどの本やルーズリーフ、紙の資料、科学実験室にあるようなビーカーや三角フラスコなど。
Beakers and flasks? What? With a twist of the wrist, it then shone upon a desk containing a chaotic mountain of books, loose-leaf notes, documents, and assorted beakers and flasks.
まるで科学者が研究か実験でも行っていたかのような散らかり方だった。
It looked like some mad scientists had done research and conducted all manner of untold experiments down here.
あれは何かのケース？
What's that? It looks like someone's family tree.
委員長が離れた机に置いてある古びた紙に近寄っていく。
Ayumi! Okay. Ayumi shot over toward a desk further in, her interest piqued by a glimpse of a large document spread out on its surface. I followed her lead.
中島さんにも明かりが必要ね。そこ、ノコギリの刃とか工具が机に置いてあって危ないよ。ごめんね。ちょっとそこで待ってて。
Oh, you need light too? Oh, you need light too, don't you? Sorry. There's a desk over there with saw blades and other sharp tools on it, so it's kind of dangerous. Stay where you are. What is this? Mad father all over again?
能力者一族系譜の図?
Genealogy chart gifted line.
家系図ね。何？能力者って。
It really is a family tree. What does it mean by gifted?
篠崎、三船、島村、三田、長尾。この名前。
So Shinozaki, Mifune, Shimamura, Mita, Nagao. Oh, I recognize some of these names.
そう。あながち嘘でもないのです。
What? That's right, it's not necessarily a lie. There were many individuals born in the closing days of the Meiji period who possessed remarkable powers.
明治後期にたくさん生まれた念者、千里眼といった能力者たち。有名な千里眼事件の三船千鶴子や長尾育子。
These people achieved fame through their thougotography abilities and psychic talents prior to the so-called Senrigan Jinken, or clairvoyance controversy.
あの先人たちの能力の真偽はともかく。
So, Shizuko Mifune and Ikuko Nagao were particularly noteworthy figures at the time, or whether or not their abilities were real or not is besides the point.
超能力が科学に負けたあの宣言から後も、能力者たちは野に伏せながら自らの力を錬成し続けているのです。
What matters is that even after the scientific community discredited such abilities, the truly gifted continued exploring them anyway, often in secret.
能力者。じゃあ、ヨシエの家も超能力者の家系なの？
So if they're the gifted line, does that mean Yoshi and Sachiko were descended from those famous clairvoyants?
調べた通りだわ。男子に恵まれなかった篠崎家は。
So, it sure seemed that way, and from the looks of it, the Shinozaki line was never blessed with male heirs either.
その母方の家と血を継承していくために、婿養子を取ってきた女系の家。
It's a maternal, whatever, matrilineal house that passed its blood and family name down from mother to daughter, generation after generation through adopted son-in-laws.
ケースの中にヨシエとサチコもいるはずだよね。
I was certain if I traced this family tree far enough, I'd find the names Yoshi and Sachiko. Sure enough.
あった。やっぱりヨシエもその母親も竹から婿養子を入れて血をつないでいるのね。
Ah, there they were. And just like everyone before her, Yoshi had married a man who'd been adopted into the family in order to keep the Shinozaki name.
養子の名はセイラ。
Looks like the root of the tree is this person named Seira.
ヨシエの母親はラッキー。
And Yoshi's mother's name is Raki?
長女なんだ。兄弟に男子もいない。なるほど。当主直系のサラブレッドなのね、ヨシエは。
So she was the eldest daughter in her family and had no brothers. So that makes Yoshi a thoroughbred, a direct, unfiltered descendant of Seira.
死後霊になってあれだけの力を持つのもわかる気がする。
So I guess it stands to reason then that she'd have so much power and influence even as a spirit.
ラップがすごいな。
The rapping is getting pretty loud in here.
そして婿養子に入った父親は例外なく急死している。
Oh boy. All of these adopted fathers who continued the family line died suddenly after their children were born, it seems, without even one single exception.
まるでこの家が篠崎家以外の血を排除しようとしているかのようだわ。
It's like the family line had a mind of its own and went to great lengths to eliminate the blood of the other lines once it had served its purpose.
義婿として迎えるにしたって結婚するからにはきっと愛情だってあるはずだから。篠崎の女性だって辛いでしょうね。
These are men who are willing to give up their own birthrights and take another's name for the sake of love. I don't know about that. It must have been hard on the Shinozaki women.
お父さん息してないよ。
Daddy's not breathing.
あなたやはりこれは行うべきではなかった。
No, darling, no. I suppose this was the fate that just couldn't be averted.
なんて強い霊障。
Such a strong spiritual influence.
篠崎かなえ、ひろひと、あやと。
Let me guess. Yumi's on here. Kanai, Shinozaki, Hirito, Ayato.
これ、おばあちゃんとおじいちゃんとお父さん。
I knew it! I knew she was connected somehow. That's my grandmother, my grandfather, and my dad.
そういえば、入り婿だったおじいちゃんはお父さんが生まれてすぐに亡くなったって聞いて
Oh,
いたけど。
goody. And I'm guessing her dad is dead. I remember hearing that my grandfather was adopted into my grandmother's family and passed away shortly after my dad was born.
篠崎家当主の3人の娘。その三女から派生した枝葉に。
The head of the family
お
had
ばあちゃんが。
the head of the family had 3 daughters, and Grandma Kanai is descended from the youngest.
名前で嫌な直感はあったけど、私の家族がユシエや幸子たちの家系とつながっていたなんて。
So in some crazy way, they're cousins? Ish? I thought it was creepy enough just to have the same last name, but to think my family is actually from the same lineage as Yoshi and Sachiko?
能力って
Am I gifted then?
何？
What does that even mean?
ねえ、何かあったの？暗くて怖いよ。
Hey, did you find something? It's pitch black and really creepy just standing here, you know.
ごめんね。すぐそっち行く。ちょっと危ないけど、私のろうそくあげるよ。
Yeah, sorry about that. I'll be right there. In fact, fire hazard or no, how about I lend you one of my candles? Again, her skirts must be like
いいじゃん。
huge.
古びた紙を手に持って震えていた。どうしたんだろう。
The class rep had an old oversized sheet of paper in her hand and was shaking wildly. Did she find some crucial piece of information, I wondered? Oh boy.
Book of Shadows.
Hi?
委員長
Yumi?
大丈夫
Are you okay? It hurts.
頭分力で潰されるみたいに
My head feels like it's being crushed in a vice.
やだしっかりして
No, stop this. Keep it together. I don't know, she's looking at us right now. She suddenly turned toward one corner of the room and froze completely, gazing intently at the wall.
目を丸くして異様な雰囲気猫が部屋の一点を見つめて動かなくなるような
Her eyes became wide as saucers. She was like a cat who stiffened up and just kept staring into thin air, on high alert for no discernible reason.
そこに何かいるの音を聞いているの
And just as cat owners are often left wondering what their pets are seeing, I too wondered if she was looking at something, or had heard a noise maybe.
心配というか怖くなって私は委員長の体を掴んで揺さぶった
I was worried about her, but really I was more scared than anything. I grabbed her and tried to shake her out of that disconcerting trance.
委員長どうしたの
Class rep, what's wrong?
けれど彼女はすっと手で私を制しゆっくりと立ち上がって凝視した一角に向けて歩いていく
But she brushed me off and held up a hand as if to say, hold it right there. She then began walking slowly towards the corner she'd been watching. I don't want to turn around.
そこは一見して周りと変化のないただの壁だった
There didn't seem to be anything special about it. It looked no different from anything else in the room. It was just an ordinary wall.
前に立った委員長はしばらく凝視した後に急に壁を破壊し始めた
For a few moments longer, the class rep just stood there, gazing at this empty space. Then with no explanation, she began tearing away loose boards.
老朽化しているので壁の板は簡単に壊れていく
It wasn't difficult to do. The entire room was old and in tremendous disrepair, and the wood was quite thoroughly rotted. Each board came off easily.
腐食した穴に指を入れて力を入れて引き剥がすと板はすぐに短く折れて床に散る折れるとまたすぐに指を入れて板を剥がす
Eventually, small gaps began to form. She stuck her fingers into these and pulled, yanking away whole chunks of wall, forming bigger and bigger crevices.
しばらくすると壁には大きな穴が開き穴の向こうには隠れた空間があった
These crevices
押し入れ程度の狭いスペース
These crevices then finally emerged into one big gaping hole, through which a hidden subroom no bigger than a closet had been fully exposed.
そこに
Oh
は
God.
黒く分厚い本が置いてあり
And with that subroom sat a thick, dark tome. Oh God. A Book of Shadows.
ブックオブシャドウズ
It's the Book of Shadows.
どうしてこれが日本に
Why is this in Japan? Why is this in Japan?
委員長どうしたのこの本
What's going on? What's the Book of Shadows? Whatever it was clearly a very old book, and it didn't look like it was bound from paper. No. There were small ornamental patterns sewn into it, all of which had a certain disconcerting quality about them. In addition, a liquid that looked just as much like blood as it did ink had pooled into multi-hued stain all across the lip of the front cover. And that grotesque cover was already unpleasant looking enough to begin with.
人の皮と動物の皮を縫い合わせて作られた本きっと間違いないわこれはね
There's no mistaking it. There's no mistaking it. These pages were made from human skin and animal hide. This is, without a doubt, the Book of Shadows. Oh dear. Sis told me about it. It's a dark tome with a long history wrought in blood, passed down from generation to generation in secret.
中世末期にかけて主にヨーロッパに見られた恐ろしい魔女狩りの歴史のね。
Oh. It dates back to the horrible days of the witch hunts that occurred at the end of the Middle Ages, primarily in Europe.
魔女狩り？
Witch hunts?
そう。犠牲者の数は4万人にも上ると見られる。集団妄想における迫害殺戮とも言われている。
Yeah, mass paranoia led to the indiscriminate persecution and slaughter of as many as 40,000 people.
当時、悪魔と契約したとして魔術を使った容疑をかけられた人はね。
They were suspected of practicing black magic by making pacts with the devil.
教会や民間による裁判にかけられて、ひどい拷問にかけられたり、処刑されたりしたの。
So the churches and local communities brought them to trial, where they were almost always subjugated to horrible torture and eventually executed.
とても残酷な方法でね。
Usually in really cruel ways.
自然災害や貧困にあえぐ市民たちの不平のはけ口として、権力者たちにもスケープゴートとして利用されたのね。
People began blaming them for natural disasters, poverty, and other unfortunate realities of life, and eventually individuals used them as scapegoats.
主に生活の不安定な地域で苛烈に行われたこの悪臭に容疑をかけられて殺された犠牲者はほとんどの場合が意味のない言いがかりだったんだけれど。
The vast majority of those killed were just innocent victims of circumstance who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
実はその中には
But there were a few.
実はその中には実際に動的魔術を使いこなす能力者たちも本当にいたのです。
So is that why they kind of look different? Like they look similar yet different because I'm assuming they came from two different fathers. There were a few gifted people among them who had legitimately mastered the practical use of magic.
能力者？動的ってことはほうきで飛んだりとかの魔法使い？
Gifted people? And what do you mean practical use of magic? Are you talking like witches flying around on brooms and stuff? That's impossible.
にわかに信じがたいですね。
Is it hard to believe? It's hard to believe, isn't it?
でもね、あゆみちゃんには知っておいてほしいのです。科学的に説明がつかないパラノーマルの存在を。
But I want you to know everything about this, Iyumi, about the things in this world that science can't quite explain, about the paranormal.
お姉ちゃんの研究のこと知ってるから、自然の法則とか魔法の本質が祈りであるとか。
I'm already familiar with your studies, though. You taught me the laws of the natural world and that the true nature of magic is prayer.
そういう力のあることはなんとなく想像できるけど。
It makes sense too. It's really easy to understand how powers like that would work.
それ以上はファンタジーだと思ってた。
But anything more than that, like that, flying around on brooms and stuff, it just seems like fantasy to me.
私がウィッカの道を目指した時にお父様たちが猛反対された理由にも関わってくるのですが。
And I'm sure that's what Dad and Mom must have thought too when I told them I was interested in Wicca. To them, it's all just dangerous fantasy.
まあ、それは篠崎の家のルーツにも理由があって長くなるからこれはまたいつか話しますね。
So she knew? Though there are also the Shinozaki family roots to consider, but that's a long story. So how about we save it for another time? So do they have the same father? Confused.
魔女というのはすなわち村の賢者でもあったから書生にも長けていたのですね。
Witches, you see, were usually village elders and sages back in those days, conducting themselves with intelligence, dignity, and honor.
彼女たちは迫害を逃れるため一切の力を隠して生きてきたので、実際の能力者の大半は処刑されずに生き延びたそうなのですが。
So when the witch hunts began, they were smart enough to hide their powers from public view, and as a result, ironically, the majority of them survived.
その後、魔女禁止令が廃止された後でも、
But even after the ban on witchcraft was lifted,
殺戮の強烈な記憶からむやみに力を使えない風潮は続いていたため、その力は使われないままに日に日に薄れていったのです。
the memories of what happened remained, and the black arts continued to be socially shunned. Eventually, the powers of magic began to fade with disuse.
魔女たちは長い年月の歴史で培った代々伝わる魔法の術がこのまま無意に失われてしまうことを恐れたのですね。
And the witches feared that these powers, passed from generation to generation throughout their long, proud history, were in danger of being lost forever.
力を後世に継ぐため、その秘術を事細かに記し始めたのです。
So they began chronicling them on paper in painstakingly detail for all prosperity. Posterity. There you go. Posterity! That's not the Book of Shadows.
その集大成がこのブックオブシャドウズ。
I love it how conveniently the candles are lit for us. And that chronicle is right here, the Book of Shadows.
何人もの能力者の手を渡り、海底に海底を重ねて神羅万象を操る魔術の極意が収められているというウィッチクラフト英知の結集。
Passed from one gifted mage to another, revised and appended countless times, a complete guide to witchcraft, detailing spells pertaining to all creation.
怪奇神話に出てくるアルアジフという魔導書の存在はフィクションと言われてるけど。
So, you may have heard of Al-Azif, that infamous Lovecraftian grimoire that everybody says is just a work of fiction.
人づてに存在を伝えられてきたこの本は実際に存在するって研究者の間ではまことしやかに語られてきたものなの。
But whenever this book comes up, even among researchers, people always debate whether or not it's real. They always admit it's a possibility.
白魔術、黒魔術とたくさんの秘術が記されていて、中には禁忌とされる邪術も含まれているんだって。
Bet you anything Cthulhu has it. Supposedly it contains a complete listing of white and black magic spells, all manner of lost arts, and even some forbidden acts of sorcery.
邪術って危ないとか？
As in the really dangerous kind of magic?
だから素人による悪用や事故を防ぐために門外不出の書として代々魔女の家系で守られてきたもののはずなんだけど。
It would be really dangerous in the wrong hands. That's why it was supposed to have been enshrined and kept under watch by the witch's descendants.
なんでそれが今こんな日本の片隅に？
So why is something like that here, then tucked away in a hidden room in rural Japan?
わかんない。でも実際この半世紀ほどの間本物を目にしたって証明する人がいなかったから。
I don't know, but it's been a good half a century or so since anyone's been able to prove they laid eyes on it.
やっぱりその存在は疑わしいとされていたらしいんだけど。
And that's led many people to start doubting its existence. The class rep suddenly picked up the book and began casually thumbing through it as if she were looking up a word in the dictionary.
ちょっとそんなもの手に取って開いちゃって大丈夫なの？
Hey, is it really okay to be holding that, much less opening it?
少しだけ。
Yeah, it can't hurt to take a quick look.
動物の皮を縫い合わせて作られたような厚い表紙のその本は、委員長の手に持った漢字を見るとずっしりと重いもののようだった。
The tome with its cover that seemed to have been stitched together from the hides of many different animals looked heavy in the class rep's hands.
彼女はペラペラとページをめくり始める。
She became instantly engrossed in its contents as she hungrily flipped through the pages one after another.
現実とオカルトが完全に入り混じり、
私は目の前に起きている信じられない事象をただ眺めていることしかできなかった。
As for me, all I could do was watch in awe as my very real friend and classmate lost herself in this very occult book in this very impossible place.
本はやっぱり日本語ではなくフランス語で記されていて、ところどころ魔法っぽい象形文字みたいなものまで混じっていた。
So, as expected, the book was written not in Japanese, but in a mixture of French and what I could only assume to be magic runes of some sort.
高校生の私も委員長にも読むことができない。けれどところどころ日本語で注釈の書かれたページもあった。
So, oh, you poor kitty. Hey, Joe. Go play. As a high school student, I certainly couldn't read any of it, nor could the class rep, but some pages had Japanese notes scribbled in the margins.
もしかしたら篠崎義恵が書き加えたのかな。
Notes that were very possibly penciled in by Yoshi Shinozaki.
日本語注釈のあるページに出ているといいんだけど、確か邪術の中には。
So, I have no idea if there'll be Japanese footnotes for it or not, but I'm betting if I look in the sorcery section.
鬼気迫る表情でページをめくっていく委員長。
So, the glint in her eyes was one of desperation as she continued flipping through the pages.
どうしたんだろう。おろおろするしかない自分がもどかしい。
So, what was she doing? I was starting to get uncomfortably nervous about this whole thing.
やがて足が疲れたのか、今度は床に座り込んでページをめくる。
Eventually her legs must have gotten tired as she sat down on the floor, but she continued paging through the Book of Shadows.
そしてある場所で彼女は手を止めた。
Then finally she seemed to find whatever it was she was looking for. The sound of stretched skin flipping upon itself stopped, and she just stared. Uh-oh. This is it!
え？
What?
ランド・オブ・コープス。死者の国への扉を開く呪術。これが多分天神書を作り出す邪術のベースね。
Land of Corpses.
線が貼ってある。
Oh. Land of Corpses, a spell to open the door of the dead. I think this is what created Heavenly Host. There are notes all over it.
いろいろメモしてあるね。でも、なんでページ全体を×してあるの？
There certainly are, but why has the whole page have been crossed out like that? Okay, thank you, violins.
わからない。失敗したのか、途中でおじけついたのか。
I don't know, maybe the spell failed. Maybe whoever was casting it seized up with fear partway through.
でもね、そんなのどうでもいいの。
But that doesn't matter now. Why?
これよ。中島さん見て。ライズ・オブ・コープス。死者を蘇らせる呪術。
This is bad. Look at this. Look, Nakashima, raising of corpses. A spell to resurrect the dead.
これって嘘でしょ。死者をってそんなことできるわけがない。
That can't actually work, can it? Resurrecting the dead? It's just impossible. This is bad.
常識にとらわれているの。中島さん、忘れたのかしら。私たち今どこにいるの？
So, are you still bound by common sense? Nice face. Okay, are you still bound by common sense then? Have you forgotten where we are right now?
確かに起こっているすべてがすでに今朝までの現実のものではなくなっていた。
They clearly have not seen the anime Full Metal Alchemist. Resurrecting people does not work that way. I had to admit, that was a good point. Reality as I knew it was far different now than it was when I woke up this morning.
だけど、こういうのって大丈夫なの？倫理というか、超えちゃいけない一線というか。
So, but is it okay for us to do something like that? I mean, ethically? Won't we be crossing a line humans aren't meant to cross? Thank you! Thank you! Are you scared? Yeah! But...
あなたが怖いだけじゃない。相手のことを思いやってない。
Oh my goodness. So, no, you're just scared. No, you're not just scared. You're also forgetting about all the people we lost. About what they've been going through.
なすすべもなく、ゆい先生も、鈴本さんも、篠原さんも、森重くんも。
Look, she hasn't forgotten. She just doesn't want to... It's not right. Think about it. Miss Yui and Suzumoto and Shinohara and Morishige all at their wits end, suffering in that horrible place.
あんなひどい形で命を落としてしまって。
Think about how...
しかも、存在まで消されて、そんな現実、認めるの？
Think about how painful their deaths were, and how their existence were erased from this world. Can you really accept that as reality?
私は絶対認めない。あなただってそうでしょ？
Oh my goodness. I know I sure can't. I'm betting the same is true for you. That's right. Our friends were dead. They died, and we came here so we could do something about it. Oh God. And if we didn't do this, nothing would change. They'd still be dead. No hope of ever hearing their voices again. Their faces eventually forgotten. Oh God.
私の目から涙が勝手に溢れてきた。
Tears began welling up in my eyes.
会いたいよ。なんだっていい。みんなが帰ってくるのなら。
I miss them so
聖子
much.
ともう一度
And
会えるなら。
I want to back. I miss them so much, and I do whatever it took to get them back. If I could just see them again, if I could talk to Seiko one more time. That's depressing.